Hello, this is the first of two videos that are a look back at 6 years ago when I started a new project called 50 Days of Harvest. So today I'm starting 50 days, so that's loads of days, 50 days of harvesting. And my aim is to harvest at least £5 a day every day for the next 50 days. And that might be vegetables, it could be meat birds, or it could be herbs, or it could be fruits, maybe food that I've foraged, or a crop that I've sown. It could even be seeds that I dry and use in cooking. But whatever it is that I'm harvesting, it will be food that I can process and get into storage that day, and it's not going to include food that we eat that day. So if I've harvested it just for eating, it's not counting in my 50 days of harvesting. Now some days this is going to be harder than other days, because if food isn't ready, well, I'm going to have to go out and forage for it, and other days there will be a glut. But my aim isn't just to get to 250. My aim is actually to harvest all the food that we have available that needs harvesting and get it stored away. And I just thought this was a really good fun way to set myself a little target, to invite you to join in, and just to see how we get on between now and October the 5th. Now I'm not going to bore you most days with watching me harvest. There'll just be a short section at the end of each vlog, just giving you a daily update with how I'm getting on. But today, let's go and gather some food. I had hoped to get some plums this morning, but it does look like the ducks are, well, they're almost laughing at me because they've got to them first. Sure we can do it. We just got to. Hello, it's day 2 of my 50 days of harvesting, and it's been a really good start to the day. I've already had time to go outside and harvest a few things, and now I'm shelling my Bolotti beans. So yesterday we went to that castle. How fantastic was that? Wales is just a fabulous place. If you like history and you like really old things, and you are mesmerised, as I am, by the skill that people had to build huge buildings so many years ago. Wales is a great place to live because there are castles galore. And that's a lot of castles. And I haven't been to see them all. I certainly haven't. I haven't visited them all, but all the ones I've visited, I always say, why don't I do this more often? Look at the colour of these. I'm really pleased with them. So the idea of these beans is that they're not completely dried out yet. So I haven't waited until the pods have gone dry and crispy. They're still, well, they're just beginning to go leathery, but they're certainly not dry. Because I want to blanch these in a pan of boiling water and then put them in portion size bags in the freezer. One of the things I will be doing very soon is cooking masses of meals, and freezing them as a sort of two portions in a packet, or in a box, or a tub, or whatever it is that I use, because then when I have less energy and Oh, I dropped a Belotti, excuse me. So when I've got less energy, there will be effectively homemade ready meals in the freezer, which Mr. J can just pop into a microwave and heat up, or pop into a pan and heat up. This is going to be a long process, and my optimistic bowl, oh, it is already filling up. Look at this. Some of them are such pretty colours. It's a real shame because Belotti beans look beautiful like this, and then you cook them and the colour goes. I'm hiding behind the Belotti beans today because it's incredibly windy again, and we've had the most dramatic thunderstorms and lightning and rain this morning, and now the sun's come out, and it's really rather lovely out here. So I've been busy, got in today's harvest. I've had some runner beans and some more Belotti beans, and a chicken and a few raspberries, and that's brought me up to, oh, I don't know, £8 or £9 today. And if I get a chance, I'm going to wander around the fields, because around the edge of this field there is the most fabulous blackberry bushes, but I only do a few pickings at a time. So I get a few pounds, and then I come back and then I leave it for another day and let some more ripen. Now, as far as I know, I'm the only person who does any blackberry picking along that hedge, which means that I have managed to get quite a few pounds so far. And in the freezer at the moment, I think there are about £28 of blackberries, which sounds like an awful lot, but it's not, because blackberries are free food, and free food is, well, for me it's the best kind of food, and I can use it to make syrup and wine and sauces. I put it in puddings, and so to be able to have enough blackberries to see us through the year, I think we need probably another £20, which would just be amazing. And the raspberries, well, look at these are really coming on now. I've had quite a lot of raspberries. I'm just picking what's ripe each day, and I'm popping them straight into the freezer, and I'll make something from them when I've got enough to do anything constructive with them. As I'm pausing by the pond, I've just noticed that down the side of it there are still some strawberries coming. Those are little wild strawberries, and they're next to the big strawberry patch, which is there. Those are the plants that I'm moving over to the strawberry beds. But there's still some wild strawberries, which are Mr. J's favourites, so I think I might pick those and take them in, and he can have them with his lunch. Now, the compost I started making a few weeks ago isn't quite ready, but it's ready enough. So when I lifted the Belotti beans this morning, I laid the stalks and stems and leaves on top of the ground, and then on top of that, in this corner, I have put about a 2 to 3 inch layer. And when I've harvested the rest of those Belotti beans along there and across there, then I'll lay those plants onto the ground as well, and cover those with some compost too. It's just occurred to me that I haven't introduced you to the latest members of our flock. And these were born, well, they were hatched, where are we, about a week ago, and they're all settled in, and they're doing really well. So here we are in the nursery end of the stable, and I'm joined by a pair of Australorps and a Rhode Island Red and a Highline. Hello, sweeties. And these are the chicks. Oh, more Highlines, more Australorps, fabulous. So these are the chicks, and I have a feeling if I get my camera too close to them, they're just going to run off. It's raining outside today, so everybody's in. So these are young astronaut girls. They're, well, you consider them point of lay. I would have expected them to have started laying by now, but nope, they've decided not to. But when it's windy and rainy, I can usually guarantee to have a stable full of chickens. Hello there, girls. Can I come through? Oh, there's Elvis preening himself. Now, you'll see that this young man is sitting on some paper sacks, and this is because I discovered that my birds really like scratching up a paper sack. So it's the sacks that their feed come in, and every now and then I put one in here and they shred it to bits, and it just gets added to the carbon matter on the floor. Hello Elvis, my lovely chappy, how are you? Going off in disgust, are you? Good morning. It's another beautiful August day, and all the rain that we had yesterday and overnight has just, well, it's battered the plants, but it's watered the plants. And today, the glorious sunshine, it's always so welcome. So excuse me squinting, it's because it's incredibly bright, but I'm really not complaining. I love it when it's like this. I love the warmth and the stillness and the brightness, and so do my chickens. These are, well, most of them are the Brahma babies, except they don't really look quite so much like babies anymore. The Colombian one, which is the white and black one, just at the feeder now, he's actually bigger. Well, he's bigger than Diesel, and he's bigger than a lot of our laying girls, and yet he's only a matter of weeks old. He's going to be a humongous chunky boy. It's day 4 of my 50 days of harvesting, and this morning I'd been round to my neighbour's house and I asked if I could collect a few windfall apples, and they said, knock yourself out, go and help yourself, have as many as you like. Yay! So I came home and I weighed them and there were about 30 pounds of enormous, just lovely apples, and they needed a wash because they'd been on the floor and were a bit muddy, you know, and they're bruised, and actually there's quite a bit of codling moth in them, but none of that is a problem. I've cut round all of that, and so I washed them and then cut the yucky bits off. So I filled this pan with quartered apples, and skins are still on because I like the flavour that gives, and this is going to be apple sauce. So I've got jars in the oven sterilising, and the lids are boiling away here so that they're sterile too, and very shortly I'll have my first few pounds of applesauce in jars, and they will then sit quietly until they've cooled down and the lids go pop, and I know that they're vacuum sealed, and then I'll probably store them in the cupboard, in that messy cupboard behind me, which is where I have the very last of last year's jam, and some chutney from the year before last, and some mint jelly, and something that somebody gave us that I'm not going to like, but apparently Mr. J does. There's the very last of our dried bilotti beans from last year, and the runner beans from last year, and then just empty jars, and my cookery book, some more empty jars. So my £5 a day of harvesting target has well and truly been blown through the roof this morning. I've harvested another jumbo squash. So that's just going to sit there and quietly harden off and ripen. I've had 2.5 pounds of runner beans and about 30 pounds of apples, and I've still got the borlotti beans to go, but obviously I'm not going to pick them unless I can process them today. So they might be tomorrow's. I'll see how I get on with these apples. And the other job I'm doing today is to bottle up these 2 gallons of, oh, they're a lovely colour. And this is rosehip wine, as many of our homemade wines are. These are much too dry for me, but I'm assured by Mr. J that these are very, very lovely. So I've got plenty of half bottles and full-size bottles, and just about to go into a sink to sterilise them in sterilising solution, and then I can get the wine siphoned through into their bottles. It's jolly windy here again. I don't know why I even bother commenting about it. We live on a windy site. It is more windy than I would expect it to be for August, but yesterday, a bit of bad news. My outdoor tomatoes have very definitely been hit by blight, and I need to now bag these up and dispose of them. And I mean, look what it does to the tomatoes. It's just, it's so miserable. What I have done though is to pick off any tomatoes that don't look like they've got any blight on them, and I've taken them inside even though they're still very green, and I've popped them into a box with a couple of bananas, and the gas that the banana gives off as it's ripening should help ripen the tomatoes, and then I should be able to use them in cooking. The wind seems to have worked its magic on the wigwams that have the Greek gigantes runner beans on them, and they're now they're leaning further and further across the path, which means that walking along the path now requires some fairly careful negotiation around the around the beans, but it won't be too long before they're ripe and ready for me to harvest. This morning I've had 2 pounds of runner beans from a bean plant. That's still looking good. It's got quite a lot of wind damage, but that's inevitable. And the beans here, my little dwarf beans, well, they're flowering. They're very definitely flowering, and here, look at that. Nature is just so clever. So hopefully I will get a bean crop from this before the winter weather starts kicking in, or even the late autumn weather starts kicking in, and that would be lovely. There's 2 types of yellow bean, a green bean, a purple bean. There's all sorts of beans, and it would just be lovely to be able to harvest some of those as well. The little fatty meat birds they've just become so endearing. Hello babies. Hello. Hello my little fatties. How are you? You've got a lot to say for yourself. Yes. And they are lovely. And there's one more over there. I don't know what he's doing. You're just having a sit down, mate. The last of the little fatties that I dispatched weighed in at a very decent £5, which I'm really pleased about, and tomorrow I'll be able to tell you how he was, because it is in the oven as I speak, ready for supper tonight. And so for day 4 of my 50 days of harvest, I've gathered in just over 40 pounds of food today, and I'm delighted. I'm really pleased. Hello, it's Sunday afternoon and it's chaos in my kitchen again, but I am busy sorting out borlotti beans and runner beans and And I've made a cake and I've done some lunch and all of those things. Now, this morning's weather was absolutely lovely again, and I managed to spend a couple of hours outside, and I've planted up the rest of the strawberry bed, and I've also finished planting herbaceous plants in the herbaceous border, and I've planted about 150 little bulbs in there for spring flowers. It might even be more than that, but anyway, it's a load of spring bulbs, and I'm really pleased with how well that looks now. About a month ago, Mr. J and I went to our local garden centre and we bought a primrose, Primula vulgaris, which is just the yellow traditional primrose before they had any of the colours faffed with, and it's my favourite springtime flower. It's got a freshness and it almost has an innocence about it, just pale yellow flowers and just popping out over the leaves. Yeah, no, it's very pretty. So we bought one of those, and it was pot bound, to say the least, and normally I wouldn't say buy pot bound plants, but we bought this plant, and I have divided the one plant into 14 pieces. Just because as I broke the plant up, there were lots of little plantlets, and they all had roots attached. So I've planted those. So hopefully next spring we'll have the start of a small drift of primroses, and if they take really well, I then think I will plant them under the plum trees and under the elderberry trees. So that they can start to naturalise a little bit. We don't strim or weed remove or do anything under the elderberry tree, the one that's fallen over on its side, and we don't really do much maintenance under the plum trees. I have been and cleared away some sticky buds. I don't know what their proper name is, but anyway, it's a weed that sends up lots of little shoots, or quite long shoots actually, and when it goes to seed, they're little tiny weeny balls that stick to your clothes, and as kids we'd throw it at the back of somebody and it would stick on their clothes, and they'd walk around with some of this plant stuck on them all day. It would be great as kids, eh? I'm sure you've done it too. Anyway, I cleared away some of that and some of the stinging nettles, but basically I leave it because it's the duck space, and the more natural it is in some ways to me, the better. However, it would be an ideal place to plant some of the primroses, and because in that dappled shade they should romp away. Even though yesterday was a bumper harvest, that doesn't mean I can do less today. So today I still need to do my £5 of £5 in weight of food, gathered in, processed and stored away. It's easy to gather it in. It's the processing it that takes the time. So borlotti beans, huge bucket full. This is going to take me a while to process. Hello, it's Monday the 21st of August, and I've woken up to mist, or possibly fog, and rain. So perhaps we're actually just inside a cloud, but whatever it is, it's jolly damp. It's so wet and damp. The bridge, which should be here, isn't visible. You can see just the hazy wetness of it all. Today's harvest is going to be very simple. I'm going to bring in some runner beans, and I'm going to bring in some spring greens, and I think that there is one more jumbo squash ready to bring in. I'm aiming to get those at about £8 in weight each, not any more. What on earth are we going to do with more than that at one time? And if there are any left after the ducks have finished with them, yes, I'll gather in a few plums. They actually don't seem to like the Mirabelle plums as much as the Victoria plums. How fussy of them. There goes Mrs. Warren, dibbling away. In this bed last year I had parsnips, and I'd left one row of parsnips to go to seed, so I could collect them to sow next year, and that was brilliant. That all worked very well. I've got loads and loads of parsnip seeds, but obviously I didn't know whether they would be any good for next year. Well, it seems that I have nothing to worry about, because where they've dropped on the ground there are plenty of little parsnips growing, and in fact they're growing all the way through the path. And Mr. J quietly pointed out to me yesterday that these in fact are parsnips. Today's harvest has been another fabulous one. My next door neighbours very kindly said I could go and get some more windfall apples. And so here are the last of 34 pounds of apples that I picked up. Now these are big apples. They're not little ones. And so 2 apples are the best part of a pound of apples. In fact, 2 of these big ones are well over a pound. Now nothing is going to waste on this apple. I'm cutting out all the bruised bits, any bits with codling moth and any other damage, and then all the damaged bits, bruised bits and cores, and any peelings I take off are going into a bucket so I can make some cider apple vinegar with them. So absolutely nothing going to waste on these apples. Another 2.5 pounds of runner beans from the plants today. And those runner bean plants have just done brilliantly this year. They have just, it's been pound after pound. I thought I'd get about maybe a pound a day, but it's been 2 and 3 pounds a day for most of this week. It's been wonderful. And then already prepped and in the freezer are some Mirabelle plums and some more blackberries. In fact, while I've got the freezer open, because I don't want to keep opening and closing it, let me show you what I've been doing with some of those runner beans. So I've been putting them into bags. These are 2 people portion size bags. So there's a few bags there, and there's a few more in there. And then there's broad beans and almonds too, and some more runner beans. And in this drawer we've got more runner beans down there, and borlotti beans and the Savoy cabbage, and in the bottom drawer, well, more runner beans and some courgettes. Now I haven't been able to grow any courgettes this year. The plants just didn't grow, and they didn't grow last year, so I'm kind of assuming it's something to do with the seed, because it's the same seed as last year. So definitely I will be buying new seed for next year. But my next door neighbour has very kindly swapped some courgettes for runner beans, and so we've got some courgettes, they've got some runner beans, and jobs are good. I've also picked a few raspberries today, but they won't count towards my total of harvest, because we're going to eat those with supper. I'm going to make some meringues, and we've got a little bit of cream, and we're going to have a pavlova type pudding. But I have got some chives that are going into my harvest, because I like to have fresh herbs. If I chop and prepare them now, and I pop them into a bag, then I can just pull a few out at a time when I need them during the winter. There we go. That's there we go. It's just over 3 ounces, and probably with the weight of the bag it's just under 3 ounces of chopped chives. And I particularly like chives on potato salad, and when we're doing celebrations, it's very easy just to throw potato salad together the day before, and a few chives in it makes it really lovely. In the freezer I have a box that is filled with frozen herbs, which means that when I'm cooking and I want to add fresh herbs, they're just there, they're handy, I know where they are, And again, by using homegrown herbs, I know that they haven't had any chemicals sprayed on them, and I know that the food miles are, well, they're not miles, they're feet. It's day 8 of my 50 days of harvest, and I've had a good look at how I'm doing, and I'm doing actually much better than I expected to be. So I think I'm going to increase my final target, and instead of hoping to gather in £250 of food in 50 days, I'm going to double it to 500. Now I'm going to keep my minimum of £5 a day, because there are some days like today where I'm really struggling just to bring in £5, mainly because of how I feel, not because of what's in the garden. But then there are other days, like yesterday and a couple of days ago, when I had masses of apples and heavier foods that bumped up the total very quickly. So that's what I'm going to do. So from now on, up in the top corner, you'll see it no longer says a total out of 250, it says a total out of 500. So that's the first bit today, and the second bit I've already hinted at. I'm not feeling brilliant. This morning, because I wasn't really concentrating on what I was doing quite so much as staying upright, I hang on, we've got to fight our way around the there we go. Yeah, it doesn't help having to fight your way around the beans. Yeah, because I wasn't really concentrating on what I was doing, I left the gate open between the adult ducks and the ducklings, which I didn't mean to do. And when I came back out just to check everybody was all right and they had enough water, about an hour or so later, the ducklings were merrily swimming around in the adult duck pond, and the adult ducks were off to one side, well, looking more than a little disgruntled. So I have I've herded the ducklings back into their space, and the adult ducks have got theirs again, and peace reigns once more. Although the ducklings look pretty cross. Oh, ducklings, are you cross? Anyway, I've got blight. Well, no, I haven't. My tomatoes have. And if you're not sure what blight is, it turns perfectly healthy green tomatoes into that in a matter of days, and it's a nasty old fungal infection that, well, you can see what it does. It destroys the plants. Now, if you discover you've got blight in your garden, it can affect tomatoes or potatoes, and luckily my potatoes didn't get it, but my tomatoes have. And actually it's only my outdoor tomatoes, and I think that's quite typical, that your outdoor tomatoes will get blight, whereas the indoor ones, which are less susceptible to to fungal spores being in the air and to fluctuations of temperature or humidity, if you get it, you need to deal with it fairly swiftly, and I've probably left it too late. I've probably left it a bit too long. But I'm dealing with it now. So what you need to do is you need to remove every single piece of that tomato plant, and then you need to wash your hands thoroughly before you go near any other plants that are susceptible to blight. So I won't be going back into the greenhouse in the clothes that I'm wearing, and I will make sure that I've not only washed me, but I'm going to make sure I've washed my boots as well very thoroughly before I head into the greenhouse with my as yet pretty healthy tomatoes. Well, I say they're pretty healthy. they've been munched by that caterpillar that have probably taken out about half my crop, but I haven't got blight in there as yet. Talk about every cloud having a silver lining. While I'm taking these tomato plants out of the ground, I've just spotted some seedlings. Now this one is an Aquilegia, and as is this and this, there's plenty of those. I'm really pleased about that. And then here, that's a little parsnip, and in the path here, a load of parsnips, but there are some parsnips in the bed here. Now I'm very tempted to leave those. I'm sure they'll outgrow these dandelions, particularly if I get rid of the dandelions by doing a chop and drop on them. That's exciting. That's exciting. I like this when this happens, but there are an awful lot more parsnip seeds there, and there's loads of little seedlings inside that cover. Now, while it isn't my intention for the garden just to decide where things are going to grow, if things are happy there and they've germinated, well, it seems to make sense to leave them. Except I guess I run the risk of having parsnips in every bed in the garden. A bit like the potatoes, they have a feeling they'll spring up everywhere. This feels like a very natural way to grow things. It feels like, you know, if nature can plonk the seeds there and they can germinate, then, you know, unless it's a weed I don't want, why don't I just leave it and let it grow? Presumably the conditions are fine for it, so that would be a good moment. So, the duck just did a poop then, I'm so sorry. So I'll try that again. Yeah, if the conditions are right for the plants to grow, then it seems to make sense just to leave them to grow, and it does mean my garden won't be as organised, and it means that when I come out to harvest things, they're going to be all over the place. But I think I'm going to leave some of these and just see what happens next year. I had 4 cucumbers like this. Okay, it's not really as big as my head. Okay, nearly is. So yeah, big cucumbers. So I made some cucumber relish, which I didn't know whether Mr. J would like that or not, but with the last lot I made, he has enjoyed it with cold meats and with cheese, and so I've made some more, and I make it in little pots. Isn't it nice? So I make it in little pots, and I freeze them, and then 30 seconds in the microwave, and they're ready to use. I've also made quite a large amount of green tomato chutney, and it looks like this. So yeah, I'm really pleased with that. I made about 14 pounds of that, so that's all stored away in the cupboard. So it's been a really productive day, and today I have managed to process 41 pounds of food to go into our storage cupboards and freezer. So this morning I let the ducklings into the adults pen again, and now it's time to try and persuade them to to head back to their own space. And well, this might be a 2-person job, or by sheer luck they might have gone up to their own space already, and I can just shut the gate. Well, let's have a look. I don't know how many of them are there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If there was one more, that would be perfect. 6. There we go. Well, they are all there. It's all right, babies. Which means all I need to do is shut the gate and and they are in their enclosure for the evening, and hopefully we'll be able to get them to bed tonight without the song and dance that they gave us last night. They were really not interested in going to bed at all. I think they just couldn't quite work out why they had been allowed out with the adults and then were going back to their own space. I'm just doing my mid-afternoon walk round to check that the birds all have enough water and they've got enough food and that they're all healthy. Because they free range, I think it's quite important just to check that they're okay on a regular basis. And my helper's coming with me. Hello, Monty. Lots of our birds are going through the molt at the moment. So this is their annual losing of feathers. Not all of them, they don't walk around with naked chickens, but they lose an awful lot of feathers and replenish them. So rather than looking pristine and beautiful and white like the ones over there, they look tired and scruffy and slightly scrawny, like this one here. Are you feeling a bit scrawny, my lovely? Are you? Even Big White has lost his long tail feathers. He still looks splendid. Yes, you're still splendid, darling. Yes, you are. A very handsome chap. But yes, his long and lovely tail feathers have come out and will be replaced with new ones in due course. Hasn't lost his voice though. Well, everybody looks like they have water and food and are all quite happy. In fact, they're looking very happy. And so today's total will appear here. But not only did I gather some runner beans, I also gathered some French beans. Now these are the first that I've picked from this crop, and they certainly weren't for saving. Mr. J and I had them for lunch, and they were just so flavoursome. I'm really pleased I've grown them, and of course I can't remember off the top of my head what variety they are, but I will look them up and make sure that I'll put that on the screen. Highly recommend them, taste fantastic, but obviously they don't go on to my total because we've already eaten them. It's early Sunday evening, and this has been the best Sunday that I can remember in a very long time. The weather has been just amazing. Yeah, sorry about my shiny face, I've got a lot of sun cream on, but yeah, it's been hot and there's no breeze. There is just no wind blowing across this site at all, and I love it. Absolutely, it's been so lovely. And none of our neighbours or anybody in the local field are harvesting or mowing or cutting down hedges. There's been almost no sound of mechanical doings. There's a few cars in the background I can hear now, but actually for most of the day there hasn't been any sound of any vehicles either. It's just been lovely. And not wanting to waste the day, well, last night I started laying down some weed suppressing fabric on the ground here, and to join up with the pathway that I did previously in front of the compost bins. So I've done that, and I've got some chippings down on it, and I've put the front on these two compost bays here, and I've taken pretty much everything out of that one and moved it into this one. So that's turned, well, I turned the contents of that one first and then added this new one into it, so that's aerated it. And I've put straw in the bottom of this one, ready for making a new compost pile. So from this end you can see the path is going almost, but not quite, down to the food forest area, and I'm really pleased with it. It's tidied it up no end, and I've moved I've rearranged the pallets over here. There were 3 pallets in this area, well there were 2 with a dividing one down the middle, and I've swapped it out for one long pallet, and I've now dug a hole, and I'm going to fill that with some ericaceous compost and put a blueberry plant in it. It's so hot. It's great, but I'm sweating, and I would like to say I'm perspiring gently, but I'm really not. It's just, we have so few days like this here, and I really like them. And no doubt if I lived somewhere that was this hot all the time, well, 2 things would happen. 1, I'd probably get a little more used to it, and 2, I wouldn't appreciate it in quite the same way that I do now, because I'd probably find it quite hard to get things done, or I'd have to change my working pattern. Well, that would be all right. I could quite go a siesta in the afternoon. I quite often have a little nap in the afternoon, and that's without it being hot and sunny. Well, it's now 8 o'clock in the evening, and it's not a good time to be filming because the light's not great, but I wanted to show you some of the other things that we've managed to get done today. We spent a good best part of an hour looking for my garden hoe, which is now here. Well, it was there, that's where it was when I found it, but it had fallen over and it was tucked in right along the bottom of the fence, and I didn't see it for such a long time, so I wasted an hour. No, I didn't. I wandered around for an hour, which was lovely because it gave me another chance to look around the garden and take note of things, but yeah, I spent an hour looking for it. My harvesting for the day has been very simple. It's gotta love these beans. Yeah, a few runner beans and some more windfall apples from next door, and I really haven't done much in terms of processing the harvest today, so absolutely bare minimum £5. There's quite a lot of noise from the chickens tonight. They're I don't know whether they're have just got a bit cross and scratchety, is that the right word? Cross and scratchy. Oh, I don't know. Perhaps they've just got a bit fed up with it being so hot today, because they're all behaving a bit sharpishly with each other. There's a bunch of them on the little mound there. I suspect they're waiting to go into the shed, and you may just be able to hear the noise of the chickens starting to go into the shed. They always bang around and crash about. I don't know what they do, because if I go around to have a look, they all stand there looking terribly innocent, and like butter wouldn't melt in their mouths. It's been another fabulous day, and I've spent quite a lot of it out here on the patio cutting up apples. There's plenty of them, and just to sit out here with the sun warming me and chopping up apples, that's just been delightful. We have been very busy. Mr. J has mowed some of the grass, and so I've put wood chippings and sawdust and the muckings out from a duck house. Oh, I don't know, that might even be from one of the chicken houses, I can't remember. Anyway, it's the muckings out from one of the bird houses in there, and all it needs now is for me to mix it together a little bit, and just to stir it up. And you can see there's some of the grass there, and the better it's mixed, the more variety of materials, the finer they are chopped up, and the more they're mixed together, the better the compost it makes. So I will just come through here and just spend a couple of minutes whenever I'm coming past, just mixing it up a bit, and then hopefully that should get going very, very quickly. Today's harvest has been another one of my mammoth days. It does seem to go where it's a very quiet day, and then a day that's a really big harvest. But you know, maybe that's just how it goes. Maybe I need a day to rest in between, but today We've said goodbye to a silver lace Wyandotte and one of the rust cob meat birds. So between them, that was £10. And these beans have just they've been amazing, absolutely amazing. So today I've had another £4. £4, and that was after getting some yesterday. It has just been daily, and I think the rain we're getting overnight combined with the really hot days during the day, they're just loving it, and the bean pods are growing so quickly. Today I've been doing some more apples, and so I've done about £22 of apples and £10 of chickens. That's 32, and so it's another £36 I've done today, and I'm rather pleased about that. I think I've broken the £200 mark now, and that's just in 13 days, and so we've still got 37 days to go. What a fantastic project this has been, to just discipline myself to harvest some food every day. I'm just watching White in the background because he looks like he's about to crow again. And on cue. Good morning. Now, yesterday I said it was the last day of August. Well, that's because I didn't realise there were 31 days in August, and I seem to do this every year. I forget that there are 31 days. Anyway, so today actually is the last day of August, and I get an extra day in my month, hurrah. I'm now almost at the point with the runner beans where there are enough of them in our freezer, and I need to start making decisions about, well, what to do with the rest of them, because there's still plenty coming. Now I'm going to offer some to swap with local residents to see if anybody's got any other courgettes that they want to swap for some runner beans, and I'm also going to put them in our veg boxes and see if anybody is interested in veg boxes. And then the rest of them I'm going to leave on here to let them grow and be our seed for next year, because although I am planning to grow a lot of dwarf beans next year instead of the taller beans, runner beans will still be there because I just love these beans. These are a variety called White Lady, and they have white flowers rather than the usual orange and red ones, and their taste is absolutely delicious. It's the nicest tasting runner bean that I've found. Well, that's a fairly good looking tray of beans there. So there's the green beans, which are the Prince. The yellow ones, I'll have to find the name for them, but they're a flat podded yellow one. And the purple beans. Don't they look lovely together? Well, I've managed to process all of those beans and also some apples as well. And here in the freezer, ta-da! So there's lots of runner beans, and these ones, those are the Prince beans, and the purple beans are there. Now obviously they go green when you cook them, and yellow beans hiding back there. So it's been a good, sorry, it's very noisy in the freezer, isn't it? So it's been a good morning for picking and preparing. So the harvest total for all those dwarf beans and apples and vast number of things I did yesterday was £22. So that's another 22 to add to the total, and it's very, very encouraging. Hello. So on my day off on Friday, a day off from chopping and things, obviously I didn't sit around for too long because I'm not very good at sitting around unless I've absolutely got to. So I got on with a few jobs out in the garden. I tidied up the nasturtium plants which were here, filling the whole of that space. I'm halfway across the path. They've gone into the compost bin. And I did a bit of weeding in between the leeks so that they're a bit clearer. They're not completely clear, but they're not so bad. And I lifted the last of the beetroot from this bed which we're having for supper tonight, so obviously won't count in my harvest tally. And I also cleared the nasturtiums from this area here, and I think we'll have plenty next year because there's an awful lot of nasturtium seeds in the path, on the bed, and I really don't mind where they grow. I really like nasturtiums. Well, today's harvest was very easy, just this one very rather lovely squash, easiest harvesting I've done for a while, and there are several more growing on further down the vine. Look at these, don't they look great? They're still quite small, but there's plenty of time now for them to get larger and become mature. It's Saturday the 2nd of September, and as you can tell from the sun on my face and the lovely squinting look that I'm giving you, it's bright sunshine, it's very still, very little breeze, and it's very lovely. And I've been really busy today. I've been doing lots of sorting out and tidying up in the kitchen, because after all this harvesting, the kitchen's a little bit like a bomb site, and I haven't done all the kind of usual tidying up stuff that I do in there, because the kitchen's the room that we live in, really. So yes, I've been doing lots of that this morning. I've managed to pick a few blackberries. That was really nice wandering around the field early doors this morning, early morning, and it was very quiet and very still, and lots of cobwebs, but no wasps, so that was good. The house martins arrived in late spring and have been nesting under the eaves of our house. Well, I think they know that the days are getting shorter and that it's almost time that they flew south to a warmer climate for the winter. And today they were swooping around overhead, and then loads of their friends appeared. I don't know where they came from, and they all settled on the roof of the house. It's almost like they were sunbathing. I've never seen them do this before. I spent ages watching them. They just get settled and completely happy and quiet, and then all of a sudden they just take off again. I don't really want them to go. I've really enjoyed having them here, but they'll be back again. Today's harvest has included some new things. Some of the apples from our apple tree in the front orchard, and I've stored those in the barn. We were given some old and slightly cronky bread crates to store, well, whatever we wanted in, and I picked up these compressed cardboard inserts from the local farm shop that were throwing them away, but they are absolutely ideal for storing the apples on. So pop the apples in there, and the indentations keep the apples separated, so we can store them without them touching each other. And I've also had quite a few pounds of tomatoes from inside the greenhouse here, and today I've picked the first of the Thessaloniki tomatoes, which are big and well, they're really tasty as well. I might have tried one. So they're coming. The tomatoes here look okay. So the blackberries I got this morning were just over £2.5, and I've already used those to start off the next batch of wine. So in the container here, there's the blackberries and some apples, and we'll have a blackberry and apple wine. And I've put 14 ounces of raspberries into the freezer and a few more chopped chives. And it looks like tomorrow is already decided for me. It's going to be courgettes and apples and borlotti beans and more apples. My total for today is £30. That was 16 on the chickens and 8 on the apples and 6 on the borlotti beans. And I've also done lots of cooking today. Nothing to do with the harvesting, just it's one of those days. I've done some cooking. Hello, it's Tuesday the 5th of September, and What a funny old day it's been. It's been a good day, but a funny one because it was divided into two. And this morning it absolutely poured with rain, and it was quite cold. And I put on decidedly autumn clothes. And this afternoon, it's got hot. Well, you know, not really hot, but it's warmed up. It's got up to about 22 degrees C, and which was an awful lot warmer than it was this morning. This afternoon I have come home and then harvested. I've done a pound of plums, or just over a pound of plums, half a pound of raspberries, yay, 3 1/4 pounds of tomatoes, and I'm not adding this up as I go, so I'll have to put the total up on the screen as usual, and another 4 1/2 pounds of apples. Hello, it's Wednesday the 7th of September and some of us have had a more relaxing day than others. Oh Monty, you are so lovely. I've had a really busy day today, and I can't really tell you what I've done because I can't remember. But well, no, it's not even that. I've done so many bits and pieces today. So I started the day by mucking out the chicken house that the 4 small Jersey Giant chicks have been in for the last month. I have mucked it out in between, but they're not in it anymore. They've gone and joined the main flock of Jersey Giants. So cleaned their house out, and I've given it a lovely organic treatment for red mite, and I couldn't actually find any in there, except for maybe a tiny bit on the pull-out tray where their bedding is. But it seems to me a good idea to just do it in between. So while it's empty, before the next lot of chicks go into it, give it a good scrub out, a good clean, and then I know the next lot of chicks are going into a house without, hopefully, without any mites or lice or any of the other really pleasant things that chickens can have. So that's that done. And what else have I done today? I've picked an awful lot of runner beans, and not because I want any, but because I advertised. Well, actually I didn't. I'll go back a bit. I set up a Facebook group for local residents here, so that we could be in touch with each other to offer, to swap and exchange our excess produce. So if one of us has got, I don't know, a glut of, say, runner beans, we can say, I've got loads of runner beans, does anybody have any? And that's exactly what I did. I said, did anybody have any courgettes? So a lady who I've never met before, but only lives about 2 miles away, came round earlier on, and I swapped 8 pounds of runner beans, which I got from one picking. There's still masses on here. So I gave her 8 pounds of runner beans, and she gave me several large courgettes. They're almost marrows, but anyway, which is marvellous. It's exactly what I want, because I can use them to make some marrow and ginger wine. Yum. So I've prepped all of those and got them into the fermenting bucket, and I chopped a load of apples and got those into the fermenting bucket. So today's harvest is pretty good. It's a pretty good figure. And I've also picked a load of yellow bean pods, the flat yellow beans, like the ones I got the other day. So there they are. Look at that. Yeah, lovely yellow colour. So I've picked a load of those. Mr. J had some for lunch with some chicken, and then the rest have gone into the freezer. Now there are also an awful lot of raspberries that are just ready to pick, but I don't think this lot are going to get into the freezer. I think I can think of a better place to store them, and I think Mr. J and I can have some for supper. The September ripening blueberries are just starting to get really dark in colour. I've just tried one and they're still quite acid. In fact, they're turning my mouth inside out. But anyway, hopefully it won't be too long before they're ripe and sweet and delicious, and we can take them in and use those as well. It was a hectic day yesterday. I spent pretty much the whole day standing where I am now, chopping apples. And there's a lot of apples being prepared. Friends are now very, very kindly arriving with boxes of apples and plastic tubs of apples and some pears and carrier bags of apples, and we've got quite a lot of apples. And the other thing I did yesterday morning was to go out into the garden, and I picked £1, 3 ounces of raspberries, which I brought in, and I made some raspberry jam. And then when Mr. J got home from work, I texted him and asked him to bring home some cream, and when he got home from work I'd made some scones, and we had scones and raspberry jam and cream, which is it's just a delight. And it's the first time I've ever made raspberry jam with homemade raspberries, and it's the first time I've ever made raspberry jam full stop. So that was a milestone. So I'm 54 years old and I've never made raspberry jam before, but there you go. Looks like I'm going to be making plenty of it in the future. Good morning. It's Saturday the 9th of September, and it's 10 in the morning, and it's already been a really busy morning, but that's all right. I quite like it when the mornings are busy and I can put my feet up in the afternoon, but I don't think that's going to happen today. Aren't they pretty? There's my hand to give you some idea of size. And they're not, they're not very big. And then they develop these beautiful dark berries, and if you wait until they're soft, apparently that's when you can eat them. I really like these plants. They've got almost a bamboo-like stem, and they get tall. They get really tall as time goes on. You're just talking about up to 10 feet, and they form almost a thicket, and they're structural, and they're deciduous. So each year they're gonna disappear down again and then come back up. The apple tree that Jane transplanted for me early in the year, well, it is absolutely heaving. Its branches are bent over with the weight of apples, and these are the ones that I'm taking to store in the barn. And so, wherever you are in the world and whatever you're up to today, I hope it's a good one for you, and I also hope you can join me again tomorrow.